All right, thank you everyone again for joining us today. We are having our State of Small Business panel. We have a couple of speakers here today, and we're excited to have you online with us. So to get started, we'll have a couple of housekeeping items. First, we want to make sure everyone can hear us. So if you can use the dashboard in front of you to choose the green up arrow, this will let us know that you are here and can hear us. Perfect. Looks like that's working. Also, we want to make sure that if you have questions, you can use the questions window to reach out to us. So if you see that, it's to the right of your screen and it should say questions. Also, if you have any technical issues with the webinar today at any point, you should first try logging out and back into the session. If you're still experiencing issues, you can call the 855 number you see on the screen, and the GoToWebinar support team can help you with any issues. We have a lot of people joining us today, and we're going to do our best to get all of your answers to your questions before we wrap up. And I'll mention this a few times, but today's webinar is being recorded. Will be sent to you along with a copy of the slide deck via email within the next 2 days. Okay, so we have a number of people joining us, and I think this is the most exciting webinar we've had so far. But we do have a couple of business owners as well as some people who are running a business. So today we have our GM Suhaib Zaheer on the line with us. We also have CEO Rebecca Teeve and April Johnson, Art Ortiz, Amber Knowles, and a director of marketing for Amy's Ice Cream in Austin, Texas. Actually, Central Texas, I should say. So we're going to go over a few different things. We'll talk about business housekeeping. Then we'll talk about some things you can do, to help your business right now. Then we'll go into nonprofits, bars and restaurants, dog businesses, photography, and also storefront locations. So there's a lot of useful information today that we'll try to give you to help out your small business while everyone is experiencing, the changes that came from COVID-19. A lot of businesses have been impacted, and we wanted to make sure we got a lot of different people with a lot of different industries to kind of talk about some things that they're doing to help their small business during this time. So to get started, I'll kick it off to our GM, and I'll let him introduce himself. You want to go ahead and take it over?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for joining us today. As Michelle mentioned, we have a lot of great contributors here who are running very successful companies and have really valuable insights to share, especially in these unprecedented times. A little bit about myself. I have been in the technology space now for just over 15 years. Have also owned multiple small businesses, and over the course of that time as well. I'm currently leading a very talented team at Bluehost as their general manager, and I love my job every day because I get to wake up and spend all my time working with and talking to small business owners and just developing tools and other innovative technology that can help people propel their dreams and vision online. So really excited about what I'm doing. And then in my spare time, I used to produce music as one of my businesses, and I still do that a little bit on the side, although it's taken a backseat to my full-time role at Bluehost. And outside of that, you'll catch me traveling across the world when I have time, and especially love to ride my motorcycle in new places and new countries. That's always an exciting thing to do. So why don't we jump right into it? So as Michelle had mentioned, we, right now we're facing unprecedented times, and many businesses are being impacted due to the COVID-19 virus, as well as just the different things that are happening around as a result of that. And because of that, folks are having to adjust their business models and their overarching strategy in ways that we've just never had to deal with before. Some questions that you might want to be asking yourself are, how do you transition your business to an online model? Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be one or the other. If you have a physical retail space, it doesn't mean that you have to go online. That may not be practical depending on the type of business that you're running. However, going online can be a nice complementary strategy to just your overarching business model, especially when you think about how the economy is shifting and things are changing in our world today. Also, how are you connecting with clients as today, especially if you have a retail space and you are losing a lot of foot traffic? How can you stay in front of people? How do you connect with people easily and effectively? And then what can you do during your downtime? And I know that many of us who have small children at home, and now you're being a parent as well as a teacher, as well as trying to run the business, and there's just so much going on. But you may find that if you were spending an hour or two commuting a day and you have that time back in your life, there are things that you could do, not just in the moment now to deal with the situation that we're all facing, but as you think a bit more strategically long term, how can you leverage your time now to better prepare yourself for the months ahead? And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So jumping right into the business housekeeping, understandably, I think most of us are spending a good amount of time right now creating financial plans just to understand how we can keep the lights on and keep things running. But as I mentioned, with the rest of your time, there's probably areas that you could focus on to really improve the future state of your business. And three topics that I'd like to cover next are just, e-commerce. Why is that important? And how can you leverage that effectively now? Creating blog and social media content, and how you can leverage your time now to create enough content and keep up via automation, or even if you're going to do it manually, to just create that stuff and have it on deck so you can start posting more regularly. And then just thinking through updating your pricing and or business plans longer term in light of the recent events. So let's jump right into e-commerce. So, again, if you have a physical space, it doesn't mean that you have to go online, right? But allowing the expansion of your presence online, if you haven't done so already, and allowing your retail business to potentially put products and services in front of people, regardless of their physical location, is something that we strongly recommend in this day and age. It opens up your target market audience. In addition to that, it really helps you manage your overhead cost, right? So, for example, if you have a retail space now and have a 2,000 square foot location, by expanding into e-commerce, you'll notice that you may not need so much space, right? The overhead for running an e-commerce solution, an e-commerce business is often cheaper. You might need less people, for example. You might need a smaller, physical retail space. You won't have some of the heavy upfront costs that you might have with the storefront when you're doing e-commerce online. And I think the beauty of e-commerce as well is it used to be really, really difficult or complicated to get a store set up. Now there's so many tools out there that make things very easy for you to not just build a store, but also manage your inventory online. It's just with technology and the improvements that we've had in the past 10 or 15 years, it's a lot easier to actually get something set up going online than it used to be in the past. You don't have to have a lot of technical experience. There's lots of tools and resources out there, which I'll cover a little bit later on, that can help you understand how to get it set up and run it. And then most importantly, there's a bunch of tools and free resources out there that will teach you how to market your store. And so again, when you think about how to get your products and services in front of people, if you're located, in Phoenix, Arizona, you may be able to put your business out, nationwide, maybe worldwide, right? Depending on what it is that you're selling. So again, it's not that you have to do one or the other, but branching out into e-commerce can be a nice complementary strategy to your overall business model, especially in these times now where foot traffic is down across the board. Jumping into the second topic, which I want to just chat about really quickly, is content creation. Now, this one is tricky, and I think a lot of times I talk to business owners, and we're so busy with the day-to-day management aspect of running the business that it's hard to carve out time to really develop content. When you're worried about the various issues that are coming up day to day, it's hard to sometimes, sit down and get focused and say, okay, what am I going to do for my business long term? And if you're going to branch out online, content creation is a very, very important step to ensure your success online. For those of you, I know everyone's heard the term SEO, search engine optimization. Content creation is a core component of that overall strategy. And one of the things that you might want to do is just understand what kind of content is ranking really well in your industry, and then start to develop that type of content and start to write it down and document it so you can sort of update and modernize your website provide value and information to customers. And I think it's important, it's not always about selling something, it's about providing value to your customer base or your industry and creating a reason for why people may want to come back, right? You don't always have to have your salesperson hat on. If you're, a pool maintenance person, right, and you want to put content out there around, hey, you might want to do these 3 things to ensure that you're properly maintaining your pool. Even if you're not constantly selling your service, just providing valuable, useful information will help you drive traffic to your site over time. And that's something that's really, really important. And you want to continually do this constantly because it does take time. And that's one thing to keep top of mind is a lot of times when I talk to small business owners and they're like, hey, I'm doing blog posts, I'm updating my content, and I'm not seeing this overnight, huge spike in traffic. It's important to remember that this stuff does take time. Specifically, search engine optimization will take anywhere from 3, 6, 9 months before you start to see traction. But starting today will ensure that you start to actually build and create some momentum as we head into 2020. Same thing with social media posts. It's important to be consistent here. And I know, again, it can be challenging if you haven't done this before. But if you're finding yourself with any kind of downtime right now, creating little micro pieces of content, and if you're not going to automate it, just even sticking them into a Word doc or a Google Doc, but just creating content that you can then go copy, paste, and post throughout your social networks. The key here is to do it consistently, whether that's, once a week, 10 times a month, whatever you can afford to do. It's important that you be consistent in this respect because that's the way that you're going to get the best traction. And also important to know, just based on what's happened right now with the whole COVID situation, we're seeing record high engagement across all social platforms. And so if you've ever thought about venturing out and starting your Twitter, Instagram, or creating social posts, this is the time to do it. Right now, people are at home, they're on the internet, they are spending time in a variety of different places, and engagement is so high right now that it'd be a great opportunity to get started and just be consistent. And I think the last thing I'd call out is, as you start to drive consistency with your content development across your website, across your social channels, you want to make sure that you have an opportunity for customers to subscribe, whether that's a simple widget on your website. There's plenty of free plugins and tools out there that will let you capture a customer's email address and or any other pertinent information that you want to capture. And again, it all comes down to providing value that brings people back to your site and encourages them to interact with you. And as you collect their information, it allows you an opportunity to sort of retarget and remarket to those customers over the course of time, whether that's during holiday promos or any other reason that you want to reach out to them. Collecting their email address is a really important step in ensuring that you're building and deepening your relationship with customers over time. Next, lastly, I just want to jump into sort of thinking about updating your business plan or pricing. Again, we talked about some of you may have really big offices, 2, 3, 4,000 square feet where you've got a lot of employees. One of the things that we're noticing as our own business is folks are really enjoying being home and around their families a little bit more. And I think when this is over, we're probably likely going to revisit just the way that we look at work from home. There's been a ton of companies out there who have done this very successfully for years. And they've thought through the right tooling, the right support mechanisms for employees to really thrive in a work from home environment. But I think it's important that when you think about the way you're structured today, before these unprecedented things sort of happen, and the environment you're in right now, if your employees can thrive at home, maybe you don't need, a 5,000 square foot facility, and you have folks work from home, and then you get a WeWork space and have them come in once a month or once a quarter where you get the team together. Things like that and reducing your overall overhead, right, can actually help you, redeploy that money back into your business, whether it's marketing, whether it's, any other thing that you want to invest in. And if you reduce your overhead, it might give you an opportunity to rethink your pricing models, right? I think the other thing you have to consider that's happening in the economy right now, unfortunately, a lot of people are losing their jobs. They're going to have less discretionary spending that they can afford, and so it's key to think through: is there a way that you can, redeploy investment and or think through your pricing models to make things more palatable for consumers as we head into what may end up being a recession in 2020, right? And so just thinking through what you could do on your end to sort of streamline your operation, that gives you some flexibility on the pricing point that may also be beneficial to you in 2020, as we collectively go through what I think is a very unprecedented time for us in the past 10 or 15 years. Outside of that, I did want to cover a couple of tools. I'm trying to cover quite a bit here in 5 or 10 minutes, but the tools, when it comes to e-commerce, there's things like WooCommerce that are out there. Again, used to be very complicated to get started, but through technology, these things are easier to actually launch and grow. Content creation tools like SEMrush is the one I'd call out. Very, very insightful information. So if you are going to launch an e-commerce store and or you want to start marketing your website or your online presence differently, something like SEMrush can actually give you competitors' keywords, industry keywords that are really working well for PPC as well as SEO. It can give you recommendations on different phrases or different content that you can market to really put your business in front of folks. And so there's a lot of tools out there, not just from a content creation, but from an analytics perspective that can help you understand what's working in your industry. And there's no reason to recreate the wheel, right? If you can get that information and it's at the tip of your fingers, then what can you go do with that? And how can you use these tools to sort of expand and get your business out in front of folks? And the last thing I mentioned, lead gen, things like WP Forms, Opt-in Monster, some of these are free or very, very minimal cost to leverage. But collecting customer information as you develop content, as you get more engaged on social, as you start to create traffic to your social channels and website, it's very, very important that you try to capture customer contact information, because it will allow you to deepen your relationship with these customers over time by reaching out to them once, providing useful information, and or when you run your promos, just making sure that you can get that in front of people at the right time and bring them back to you and drive up your sales further. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions if we have any.
Yeah, thanks.
Otherwise, Michelle, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. We do have a few questions, and I think you did a great job of explaining some ways that businesses can take advantage of the time that they may have. I do notice a few people asked about PPC. What does that mean? And also, how can you help digital marketing as a digital marketing consultant? How can you help small business owners understand how to even budget for it to be effective?
That's a great question. So again, I think with the advent of technology, especially in the last 10 years, what we've seen is there's various tools and resources that you can use now that will help you manage your pay-per-click campaigns, which is what PPC stands for, very effectively. So 10 years ago, if you were to go to Google and try to manage your own pay-per-click campaign, let's just say you're a plumber in San Francisco, California, it's very, very competitive. And if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what key phrases to bid on, and matter of fact, the tool itself is actually a little bit complicated to use, you may take $100 and get a certain return on that $100, right? If you're just starting out. Now there are tools that that we offer through Bluehost. There's tools that exist at other companies to where you can simply fill out a profile and you can say, hey, I'm a plumber in San Francisco. Here's my target market. Here's my target audience. Here are the services that I offer. For example, maybe you only do remodels, or you only do repairs, or you only do new construction. You can provide that information and leverage automation and these AI tools that exist to really automatically create the campaigns for you. And what we're noticing is customers who use tools like that tend to get a better return on that investment. And so that same $100 that you spend may stretch a little bit further because you're using technology that can sort of really hone in on your target market and effectively spend $100, maybe more effectively than you could do yourself. And so again, you don't have to necessarily be an expert to go out there and venture out and to start, using online marketing tools. And there's, again, free services out there. There's services that we offer where we can walk folks through it. But the reality is, investing in building an online presence and then getting that online presence in front of more and more people has never been more important. And that's the point I really want to underscore, is that you don't necessarily have to know what you're doing anymore, and there are tools that will make it much easier, and will also make sure that your spend, every dollar you spend, is a more effective dollar than maybe it was 10 years ago when the technology didn't exist.
Absolutely. I agree with that for sure. We have a couple of other questions I want to get through, maybe one or two more before we move on to the
Sure.
next person. So someone asked, does Bluehost have a support system to help evaluate what tools would work best with their given website?
Yeah, so depending on what your overall goals are, I mean, our support teams are trained to sort of not just provide technical assistance, but understand what your ultimate goals are. Again, it does vary business to business. Not every business is going to have the same needs. So depending on what you are, the service that you're providing, the products that you're selling, your target market, where you are in your cycle, is just an idea. Are you in the inception stage, or have you had, a business out there for 10 or 15 years that's not adequately represented online? We really can provide, and this is, free of charge, information that will help you understand how to leverage not just the tools we offer, but just the internet on how to sort of push your business forward. So I would urge anyone that has questions, simply just call into our support line, let them know what it is that you're trying to do, and we're happy to provide any assistance. But yes, absolutely, we offer that service, and we're happy to make recommendations depending on what your personal goals are.
Awesome, thank you. And then I'm going to ask one more question. Where would you suggest, or how would you suggest someone increasing their knowledge of SEO in order to help their customers and their own business get a little bit more exposure?
This is, again, I'd say the internet is the most powerful thing, right? Where if you just go in there and type in, the basics of SEO into Google, you will find a plethora of information, helpful articles. You will find there's just so much information online, and candidly, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So my recommendation would be just to start by learning some of the basics, right? Why is search engine optimization important? How does it work? Why does it work? Why does it take time? Once you educate yourself on the basics online, again, there are tools that companies like us offer where you can actually do SEO for your own site on your own, and there's tools that will help you along the way. And there's also services out there that we offer and plenty of other companies offer that will have a trained expert sort of perform that function for you just getting started. Again, depending on your industry and depending on the city and state and your target market, it can be relatively inexpensive. And, again, if you're talking about that plumber in San Francisco, that's a very competitive industry in a very competitive area. And so that can actually end up requiring a little bit more of an investment. So if you're just starting out, my first recommendation is just to get online and do a little bit of Googling and just educate yourself on what is SEO and why is it important and how does it work. And then from there, you can branch off into leveraging some DIY tools, do-it-yourself tools, which will help you just kind of get things going before you have to make any kind of serious investment in having a trained professional go out there and start to perform SEO for your site. Because there's, the thing is, I talk to a lot of clients who haven't really spent time doing this. The first step before you can even worry about SEO is content creation, right? You've got to have enough content on your site to provide value to your customer base, to your industry, in order for this to really be successful. And so the thing that pains me a lot of times when I see folks that start to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every month and they haven't done the groundwork first, right? And so I would encourage you to sort of just get on Google. The best way to learn is just literally just to use Google at your disposal, educate yourself, and then again, reach out to us if you have any questions, and we're more than happy to provide guidance from there.
Thank you so much, Sue. I will kind of plug us a little bit. We do have I think a helpful bit of content that will be coming out soon about SEO that will hopefully also help some of you who are trying to understand it a little bit better and some practical ways to explain it to your customers. I appreciate you presenting, Sue. We're going to go ahead and go to our next speaker. Do you have any follow-up, anything that you want to say?
No, thanks again for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you coming on. Okay, so next we're going to talk about nonprofits and how they can adapt during these uncertain times. And we have a very special guest to talk to us about that. Rebecca, if you want to take it away, we will go ahead and listen to you now.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to follow up on a lot of what Sue said. We're not on visuals here, but I kept nodding the entire time he was talking. And so I love that he set the scene for that. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to reference and back to some of the things that he talked about. So really quickly, a little bit about myself. I am the owner and CEO of Red Start Creative. We celebrated 11 years. We're celebrating 11 years of business this year. And we provide branding and digital marketing for nonprofits and small businesses. And we're located just outside of Baltimore, Maryland. And one of the things that I love about working with small businesses and nonprofits is there are so many similarities. You know, people who are owners of small businesses, you know, work hard, they're doing it because they love it. People that work at nonprofits are hard workers and they're doing it because they love it. They're certainly not in it for the paycheck. So I'm going to specifically mention some things for nonprofits today, but this is also all very relevant to small businesses. So as I'm going through and I'm talking, you can use these words interchangeably. So when I'm talking, I might say organization, so that would be your nonprofit or your small business. And when I talk about, you know, asking for donations, you can equate that with asking for business. So I think that'll help as we go through. So jumping in, I kind of want to talk a little bit about 4 big things that we really want to remember right now from a strategy perspective. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the specifics. But we want to, and I was taking some notes the other day, and you know, it really comes down to these 4 C's. We want to make sure we're cultivating relationships, we're communicating clearly, we're converting events, and we're continuing to ask for donations or business. And I think these are 4 things that I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth about why that's important during this time. And the first thing is cultivating relationships. So I don't know about everybody here, but I certainly know the first few weeks I was doing a lot of phone calls. So I was doing phone calls with past clients. I was doing phone calls with potential clients. I was doing phone calls with current clients. And I was really just not asking for business at that point, but checking in and saying, hey, how's it going? How can I support you? How are you feeling? I know a lot of networking conversations I was doing with people that usually we'd be networking and talking about how we could support each other's businesses turned into how are our businesses adapting. So really remember that relationships are the key to our organization. So, you know, talk to those people outside your organization and people in your organization. So if you are a nonprofit, make sure you're continuing those board meetings that you're doing. And that would be, you know, obviously on a digital platform, but make sure you're keeping those out, those board meetings and those board committee meetings. I think what's really important right now, make sure you're holding some sort of staff meeting or communication. If you're a very large organization, you know, maybe you're meeting with department heads and then you're going ahead and they're, you know, sending the message down. For us, we have a team meeting every Tuesday, and I'm starting our team meeting every Tuesday with saying, hey, here's where we are. Here's what our plan is. You know, keep really working on those relationships with my team. You know, another way is to think about it, you know, when you're a nonprofit, send messages out to your volunteers and donors. And again, you can do this via email, you can do this via social, but make sure that people are hearing from you, that you're not just quiet right now. I think phone calls absolutely are warranted, you know, for major donors or sponsors or for very large customers. I think phone calls or meetings are very, very important. You know, and in order to continue this, you really want to look on what's your plan? How are you going to continue outreach over the next few months, which will look uncertain, right? So you may have had a plan for your communication strategy for the year and it's different now. You know, most people are pivoting and pivoting very quickly. So what is that going to look like, and how are you going to, you know, reach out to do those communications? And when we're talking about communicating, we can kind of get into some of those tools that Sue was talking about. So I'm really, really glad. Again, that was such a great transition. So you want to go ahead and let's create a communications plan, and it needs to be digital right now. I think that's really, really important. And when we're talking about digital, you know, we typically talk about at Red Start, we talk about your digital marketing is a combination of your websites, your email communications, and your social media communications. And those three things work really, really well together, and you can create a strategy with those. You can repurpose content among them. There's a lot that you can do. One thing that I do want to talk about when you are talking about setting up a social media strategy, when you're considering doing either organic SEO or paid SEO, is what is the health of your website? And I think it's really important to look at the health of your website, because really the goal of all these channels, the goal of your website, the goal of your email newsletter, and the goal of your social really should be providing information, but directing people back to your website. And then your website will have a call to action. So we like to say whatever that call to action is, as you're going through, all of those digital tools are creating awareness, and they're creating somebody to consider you for a donation or a sale or an engagement. And so you need to make sure your website is very healthy, and look at that homepage of the website to see if that will work as people come through. So breaking it down very, very simply, again, you want to be consistent. Oh, can we go back one slide really quick? I just want to go into this part really quick. So digital marketing, you want to consistently show up. So what that means is updating your website with 1 to 2 new pieces of content each month. You don't have to do that on your own. It doesn't have to be from scratch. So you could write a piece of content about what's going on in your industry. You could find another piece of content and post that there as well. So the idea is, this is a form of organic SEO. You're posting relevant content to your audience on your website, and that's great for the health of your website. Send out a monthly e-newsletter. You may need to do it weekly even right now if you have a lot of fast changes. But go ahead and communicate in that. Keep it very, very simple with the message. You can even use one of those pieces of content you wrote to go ahead and send those out. Post consistently on social media. We usually talk about maybe 3 to 4 times a week. We're even saying maybe 3 to 5 times a week right now, because things are happening fast. And determine where your audience is. For most people, we recommend Facebook and then a secondary channel where your audience would be depending on demographics. And for those nonprofits that are doing fundraising, consider a fall direct mail campaign to solicit individual donors if that is part of the way that you're doing it. So I would still be planning for a fall solicitation for nonprofits. Okay, lots on that slide. So moving on. Events. Events are so important to both nonprofits and small businesses. You know, nonprofits are using them like a 5K to raise awareness. They're doing galas to raise funds. You know, it's the spring. There's a lot of events there. There's a lot of networking events for business. There's a lot of team events for businesses to create camaraderie. So what we're looking at right now is the people that are pivoting and innovating as quick as possible are the ones that are going to succeed at this. I am in a nonprofit group on Facebook called Nonprofits Unleashed, and there was somebody in there the other day that held a virtual event and raised $100,000. Now they had 7,000 people on their email list, and they had a very strategic campaign, but they were able to do a virtual event in place of a gala and raise funds. So look at all the technology that's out there. There's Zoom, there's GoToMeeting, there's Google Hangout, there's even other high-end production tools. And look at holding a non-event event. You can raise awareness. You know, I've seen a lot of people doing virtual 5Ks. That's a great idea. You could do something with April Fool's tomorrow. You could do cutest pet contests. You could do all sorts of things. And what's really great about right now, you can integrate social media into these virtual events. So there could be a hashtag for the events. You can encourage participation. You can make sure people are tagging your organization, make sure they're tagging themselves. And this is going to raise awareness, and it's going to increase engagement on social media, and more people will know about it. So with events, I would say don't hesitate. I would jump right in, figure out how you can innovate your events, and figure out how you can creatively convert what would have been an in-person event to a digital, to a virtual event. I know for us, we have a team event that we do every June, early June, which is a family barbecue. We're probably not going to be able to do that in early June. So we're going to work on a way that we can come up and we can do that via a virtual platform. All right, and our last C is continue to ask, either for donations or for business. And, we're living in an uncertain time period, right? We know things are changed. We're going to be virtual for a while. Nobody has any idea how long this is going to last. But I think we are moving through the period of time where we've seen so many people jumping in and offering resources and offering free things. And I think as we start to hit, depending where you are geographically, I know I'm on the East Coast, so we're entering week 3 of mostly a stay-at-home virtual environment. Some people might be a little bit further along, but what I'm noticing is that it's around week 3 or 4 that people are emerging from that touch-based time frame, and people are going into how are they going to pivot and how are they going to adapt. And so how can you ask for donations? What is that campaign going to be? And I know for many nonprofits, now more than ever, their services are needed. How are your services needed in this time of crisis? One thing that's a really great way to ask for donations is, what's a small amount to give to a monthly giving campaign? It might be a really great time to convert people to a monthly donation program, because they're not going to Starbucks once or twice a week, and they could give you $5, $10, $20 a month, and then now they're in your funnel, now they're a donor, and you can cultivate that. So really, again, back to transparent and authentic communication. Tell your customers, your donors, your supporters where you are and where you stand and how they can support you. So again, you're not going to hit your biggest donation month ever, but I just don't want to see people hesitant to ask for donations. So I would, again, communicate, jump in, ask for those donations, ask for that business in a conscientious way. And it's very interesting for small businesses. I was on a call the other day, and somebody said, watching QVC was their guilty pleasure. And they said, QVC, that's their job, is to sell you things. And they said, if you listen now, how they're talking, how they're presenting things, they're presenting it in the context of the current environment. So when you're going to sell or when you're going to ask, present it in the context of the current environment. And again, people, if you look, the floodgates have opened. People are supporting first responders. People are responding to the call to help. And I think that's something that's really wonderful that we can look to in a time of crisis, is that people jump up and support one another. And so if you can clearly articulate the mission and how your organization is supporting your community and how it's needed, you will get a response. You will begin a relationship with this new donor or this new customer, and then use your communications as you go through to communicate with them. All right, questions. I know I did a lot in a little amount of time.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was super helpful. I appreciate you giving that information. You do have quite a bit of questions, so I'm going to try to find a few that work well. I think a really good one to ask you would be, how do you market your nonprofit business to donors if you do not have a specific ideal customer avatar who donates?
Okay, so if you're not even sure kind of who your ideal donor profile is.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Okay, so what I would say is see if you can figure out what that is. If you have, and I know nonprofits are all over the place. Some people might have their donors in an Excel document. Some people might have more robust donor programs. But I would go ahead and take a look whether you are doing just a scan through the data to see if you can figure out the demographics, whether you can gather that from your fundraising software, or if you can run it through something like Wealth Engine to go ahead and get an idea of your demographics. And you can go ahead, I think it's really important to determine what that audience is to know where they are. So for example, if you are getting a lot of individual donors that are, over the age of 50, you probably want to be on Facebook, and you want to make sure you're still doing direct mail. If your donors tend to skew a little bit younger, a platform like Instagram would be really great. So you can I would definitely do some research and take a look at that. The other thing is do some research out there. And again, Google's a great resource, and see what are some similar organizations, and see if you can figure that out. One resource I love, we use Sprout Social to manage our social media platforms. And they have a report they release every year about what audience likes that are supporting either nonprofits or educational nonprofits or healthcare nonprofits. And there's a lot of great data out there on that, which is good. And some of that, I'm just going to do a really quick little plug. We're actually I gave you guys such quick little nuggets. We're actually doing a free 6-week webinar series on how to DIY your own marketing. And the modules 4 and 5 are on Digital Marketing 101 and Digital Marketing 202. So we'll get way more in depth on this. But in the meantime, and again, everybody's welcome to sign up for that. It's totally free, no strings attached. But you could Google, try to find Sprout Social's State of Social Media report. And there's a lot of stats on there as to who is on what social media platform.
Perfect, thank you. And there's another question about understanding donors. So if you have a nonprofit that does not currently have donors, how would you even suggest seeking out getting some and finding which types you need?
Okay, great. And that's a really great question. So typically nonprofit funding is made up of a couple of different things. It can be made up of state or federal funding. It can be made up of foundational grants. It can be made up of sponsors, and then it can be made up as individual donors. And I think every nonprofit is different, but I think having a mix of funding is really, really important. I've been saying this for years. If you are an organization that's 100% grant dependent, I would look at diversifying that a little bit. So if you're looking to get started with individual donors, I think you need to commit. Just like one thing Sue was saying, like with social media, you need to commit to that over a period of time. You're not going to see results right away. You need to commit to that for 6 or 9 months to see results. If you're looking to build an individual donor program, you need to come up with a 3-year plan. You really need to come up with a 3-year plan to engage donors, to grow, and then to cultivate those donors. So you can buy mailing lists. You can consult with the mail house, and they can actually help you find people that have donated to similar causes. They could do that. You could build your list organically by asking board members for people that you could solicit, or the board members could solicit on your behalf. You can also do something that I love on social media, again, because we're so digital right now. If you have an email list, even if it's small, Facebook can build what's called a lookalike audience, and they can go ahead and actually build a lookalike audience and actually help you do some targeting via Facebook to get people and to capture their contact information somehow, and then you can build a relationship with them.
Awesome, thank you for that. There were a lot of questions about the link to the webinar series. I did drop it in the chat. So you'll notice it in the bottom half of your screen. There's a chat little icon, and I put the link in there to the free webinar series. So feel free to grab that. And it looks like I just had a misspelling in it, so I'm sorry, I tried to do it quickly. I also have a couple of people who are asking about what is a virtual 5K, and what type of suggestions, if any, would you have for like a fashion type of business?
Okay, so for a virtual 5K, a lot of people are stuck at home right now. And 5Ks, so it depends on the organization. Some organizations can do 5K and they can actually be huge fundraisers. Other organizations, they set up their 5Ks, and if they don't have a huge amount of sponsors, it tends to be kind of a break-even event, but really big for awareness. And so right now, people are trying to come up, let's face it, people are bored, they're in their house, they're trying to come up with creative ways to spend their time. And so many of you may have seen, if you have kids, people are doing, that people did for St. Patrick's Day, like shamrock hunts, walk around your neighborhood and search for all the shamrocks, walk around your neighborhood and look for all the bears. Well, what a better way to get out of your house is to pick a day or pick a week and say, run your virtual 5K, do maybe your peer-to-peer fundraising, tag our organization, take a picture, use the hashtag, and then everybody gets to see that follows the organization, everybody gets to see that follows that individual. So you'd pick a time period, you would promote it just as if it was a physical 5K where everybody is together, but everybody will run that 5K on their own. So they would go ahead and do that. And again, that would be the same thing if you were doing a non-gala gala. You could encourage people to dress up in their living room and come up with a hashtag for your event. And then you had there was a question from a fashion business. So I'm not sure. I think my first thought would be is if you're not doing e-commerce already, is to make sure you get on e-commerce. And again, there's so many different platforms. There's WooCommerce, there's Shopify, but I would say make sure you are already in the process of converting over to some sort of way that you can sell online. And then I think what you could really do is cultivate relationships that you have that people really, from people that really love your business. So kind of those raving fans. Ask people to take photos and clothes they've purchased from you. You could run a contest, you could have people use a hashtag. As long as they mention you, you could run a different contest that way. You could also, I've seen a clothing line do this. They've actually created a group for people that have purchased from them. And then people in the group actually share how they've worn fashion from that organization, or they'll actually do buy, sell, or trade among each other of items from that organization as well, because their mission is part of their mission is sustainability. So I hope that's helpful.
That was so helpful. Thank you so much, Rebecca. We are going to go to the next speaker. Did you have any final things you'd like to say?
Well, I think the final thing I have to say is take a breath. Don't be overwhelmed. I think a lot of people are in a period of uncertainty. And I think what's important is to keep communicating authentically, be transparent, and make sure people know that you're still there. And I don't think, a lot of people that I've talked to are like, I don't want people to be offended that I'm asking for donations. And I said, I think people are really being kind to one another right now. And I would hope that people would know any sort of a misstep, any sort of, content or a post, as long as it's coming from the heart, if somebody is accidentally offended, I would not worry about that, as long as your intentions as long as you're well-intentioned and you're writing and you're communicating from the heart. I think that's just a really great way to guide how we're making these decisions, because a lot of people are in the same boat.
I'd agree. And I have seen a lot of people being a lot more kind and a lot more understanding that everyone's under the same stress. Everyone's trying to figure it out as they go, and we're all in this together. So I think that was a great point to end on, Rebecca. I am going to go to our next speaker, and we're going to talk about the impact on the food and beverage industry and how that is coming to play out. Thank you so much, Rebecca, again, for joining us. Next, I'm going to introduce you all to April Johnson. April, if you want to take it away.
Sure, thank you. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is April Johnson, and as you can see here, I'm the founder of a company called Happyed. And so what we do with Happyed is we answer that age-old question, which is, where should we go for happy hour? As we always say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, and on our app, you can find it. We obviously, in being in the hospitality space and the happy hour space, were severely impacted by COVID-19 and the restaurant and bar shutdown. but found ourselves in a really interesting kind of place with that. We can go to the next slide. So just to tell you a little bit more about like how our app works, so you can understand like how we make money and how we were affected by this. So the way the app works generally is that you can search for happy hours by day, time, location, and then you can go filter down by vibe type, drink type, food type, connecting you to spots that are the best spots for you. We make money two ways. Restaurants and bars pay for marketing and advertising. And then consumers also pay for an extended happy hour program that we have called Work Hard, Play Harder, which is for people that are working past that 6 or 7 o'clock p.m. time, can't make it to happy hour, used to always love to go to happy hour, but now you can't go. So they can access extended happy hour until 9 p.m. at some really great places, plus get access to events by paying a monthly fee as a subscription. So as you can imagine, both of those revenue streams were completely gone. We're not going to be charging restaurants and bars for marketing because they have no one to market to. And consumers are not going to be paying for extended happy hour subscriptions. So we literally stopped everything once everything shut down. Happy is live right now only in Washington, D.C. But we found ourselves in this really interesting place, and Rebecca talked a lot about it with virtual events and finding your authenticity and what you provide to the community. And for us, it's like, okay, we have thousands of people that look to our app to know where to go. They see us as this connector. We have these relationships with these restaurants and bars, and our goal is really always been to support them, to get the right people in their door, getting them making more money. So how can we, as this tech platform, do something that provides value to both sides of that equation while also keeping ourselves sustained in this, right? So that's where we came up with our virtual happy hour series. And so a lot of people have probably seen virtual happy hours popping up all over the web, specifically on social media. A lot of people are doing, virtual happy hours with their friends, hopping on FaceTime, or house party and things like that. But our concept is a little bit different. We've looked at it from a company perspective, from a productization perspective, and from a revenue generating perspective. So what we do is we actually hire local bartenders to host these happy hours, which are really more of cocktail classes than just a happy hour. So people sign up for this happy hour, they actually pay to come. It's $10 per ticket. Half of that goes to the bartender, and then the other half goes to Happy. And we curate a really fun experience, right? We're bringing back that social connectedness to people, allowing them to see and interact with everyone, interact with their bartender, and really transport them back to the virtual bar. So it's more akin to like a going out as opposed to just hopping on like a FaceTime with friends. And so picking up also what Rebecca said about like choosing your platform and what you're going to host on. If you are doing virtual events, it's important. So a lot of times we've seen so many people doing all of these lives, and those are great, but you don't get that interaction if you're doing an IG live or a Facebook live. You have people that are popping in, popping out. You can't see them. You can't talk to them, vocally. And so we knew that we did not want something like that. We knew that we wanted something where everyone can see each other, interact with each other. And so we ended up choosing Zoom as our hosting platform. Another thing is just in terms of charging people, right? So many people are hosting IG lives and all these things, and you can't charge them to access an IG live or a Facebook live. So if you are looking to do something where you are going to be making money, whether you're a nonprofit or for profit, you definitely want to think about that in your platform. But also, what's the value of the experience? And for us, it was really important to make sure that you weren't just hopping on to watch the bartender make a drink. It was that you're part of this drink making. So once you register, we send you the ingredients. You're getting the recipes for cocktails at some of the best bars in DC. You pay for your ticket, so now you actually show up. You're ready with your shaker tin, your spirits, your bitters, all that. And you are talking to the bartender in real time, talking to your fellow happy hour goers in real time, and just connecting and taking a little bit of that edge off of the social distancing, bringing a little bit of normalcy to it. We also made sure that we have a host for each happy hour in addition to the bartender host. So there is someone that's there to make sure that that social interaction is being curated, that everyone's not talking over each other at the same time, pinning different people to the front of the screen each time. Excuse me. So really curating that experience, because if you are asking for someone to pay for something, you want to make sure that it's worth paying for and that you're not just throwing a virtual event for the sake of throwing a virtual event. Also, though, important was in how we communicated this. If you look at Happy pre-COVID-19, everything that we did was just really like bright photos of food and drink, those like food porn type of posts, and all of our emails were the same. Now it's been an opportunity to authentically connect with both sides of our audience, of our consumer base, and our restaurant and bar audience. And so for emails, for example, we've emailed all of our restaurant and bar partners, asking them how we can support, getting on calls with them. For consumers, we were very clear in our messaging, if you look through it on the At Home Happy Hour series, on why we're doing this, right? We do care about the community. We do care about bringing back a little bit of fun. That's what Happy is. It's all about fun, about connecting with your community, being social, and we can't do that in the traditional sense right now, but we felt that as a company, we could bring that back virtually and host exceptional experiences for our consumers. For bartenders, we knew they weren't getting paid, and we didn't just want to say, hey, we'll rely on tips for people that, we say, hey, here's a virtual tip jar, or here's your Cash App or your Venmo. No, we want you to actually get guaranteed money for coming to participate in this. And we want people to know that we're paying you to participate in this. So that's very clear in all of our communications as well. And so just moving on to the next slide, just how, how other people can do things like this, ideas you can steal. Virtual happy hours, again, totally think they're a great way to get people involved. But again, if you are going to be doing some type of a virtual event, do make sure that you're providing an experience worth paying for if you are trying to monetize it. But if that's not your goal, if your goal is just to, continue to engage your audience, that's fine too. But think about that in your platform. For restaurants and bars and what they're doing, and it obviously varies by jurisdiction of what's allowed. For like to-go meal kits or delivery. Here in DC, they can do cocktails to go as well. And so restaurants and bars have responded differently depending on what they're comfortable with, depending on what the demand is. Some places have started doing the to-go and delivery. Then they realized they didn't feel comfortable exposing their restaurant workers to it, so they've closed down. So it really is obviously a very like fast changing landscape. But I think the thing is just to always like communicate on both sides, whether you're a company that's in the middle of it, like Happy is, or if you're a restaurant and bar owner or operator. It's really just communicating what you're doing, your hours. There's something I know in Seattle right now that's tracking everything that's closed in Seattle. I know DC is like starting to do something similar through Eater, but just continuing to communicate with your audience on what's going on. And yeah, like it says here, look at what others are doing. There's so many support groups, and I'm sure that most restaurants know, bar owners know a lot about them. But the restaurant associations, there's a lot of Facebook groups and other social groups where people are really supporting each other right now, and really digging into those. I'm fortunate with Happy to be aligned with a lot of those groups, so to see it from the inside. I've also bartended, so have worked with a restaurant and get it from that perspective as well. But yeah, I think just seeing how everyone has come together to support each other in this time has been tremendous. I think that there are ways to continue to thrive, obviously, and it's going to depend on each person's business. But thinking about what your goals are, how you're going to provide an experience that's worth attending if you are going to do a virtual event.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really helpful to understand how your business ran. And I kind of chuckled because someone asked a question that I asked you actually. And it was, is this a temporary solution or are you making it permanent?
That's a very good question. And so initially it was only a temporary solution. But even on like our last virtual happy hour, someone was like, well, I live a little bit further and I never got to go to this bar, but this gave me the opportunity to see this place and I get to experience all these other places that I don't get to go. So I would love to continue this after. We're like looking now at what the market size is for that, because it does take a lot to put on each of these happy hours. So we want to make sure that there is a market for it after. But I do think that it's something that could potentially continue post quarantine.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to continue. I would personally love to have a virtual happy hour with a bar in DC. Also, there was a couple of questions about how long did it take you to pivot and to come up with this idea, and then what resources would you recommend for people to be able to do it quickly and successfully?
Yeah, great question. So for us, we were actually able to pivot extremely quickly. We launched our first happy hour within a week of the shutdowns here in DC. We're a very small team. So for full time, we're 2 people. A lot of people look at Happy and think it's a lot bigger and they think like, oh, your competitor is Yelp. We don't see Yelp as our competitor, but we were in this space where we were just fortunate to already have relationships on both sides of the table. So we already knew a lot of great bartenders. So we're able to call them and say, hey, we have this idea, we want to keep people connected. We want to keep, bringing in revenue for you. This is what we want to do. Are you in? And people were on so quickly that it gave us the opportunity to really just hop on that. So yeah, and then on the consumer side, because we already had the app and the following there, we were able to have an audience for the virtual happy hour. So I think we were, fortunate in that way. In terms of resources, and I think Rebecca talks a lot about like resources for virtual events generally. I think for hosting them, Eventbrite has a really good virtual event guide that they just posted not too long ago. And I think really just digging into the quality of what your offering is and making sure that you're not just like throwing something up there and just hoping it goes well, like doing a run through, testing the sound, having a staging guide. If you're going to have guest speakers, making sure that they know, what to do. Like just because it's virtual doesn't mean that it does not need to be quality is the biggest thing that I've seen. And that's why I think people have been really impressed with our virtual happy hours, is because it is really designed to be a great experience where you leave and you're like, wow, I want to come next week, right? Similar, it's like if you go to a great bar. So just thinking about what experience you're trying to create and making sure that it's as exceptional as possible and benefits all sides that are involved.
I love that you answered my next question within that question. So I really appreciate the next question that we had. I'm sorry. We definitely appreciate you joining. I think it's a great idea what you're doing with your business. And I want to open it up if you have any last minute things you'd like to say, but otherwise we'll move on.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in joining a virtual happy hour from anywhere in the country, definitely check it out. You can find more information at playhardercrew.com. Our main website is happy.co, but for the virtual happy hour, in terms of doing the checkout and the marketing for that, it was just easier for us to put it on a simple Squarespace site. So that's another resource. And for checkout, Stripe also, I think, has some program where you can get your fees waived for a certain amount of time. So we also use that, so we don't have to pay any processing fees. So we get 100% of the revenue from that. But yeah, I'd love for anyone who's interested in, meeting new people, having some good drinks, and just having a good time to join us at one of our virtual happy hours at playhardercrew.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So next we're going to talk to Art Ortiz. He's going to talk a little bit about his business and how he is managing. Go ahead, take it away, Art.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for having me. So I'm Art Ortiz. I'm the CEO of Dog Fit Dallas, based obviously in Dallas, Texas. I've been in business for 8 years now. Up until this COVID-19 situation happened, we had 15 employees. And how we're adapting to this whole thing has been actually, it's been fun. It's been fun to see how we can get creative and not only just grow as a business, but how we can still support our current clientele. Basically, a lot of what our business, we do pack walks where we gather a bunch of dogs. We go into people's houses. Now that has drastically changed because, so many people are sheltered in place. And so a lot of people are home, and so they're able to do the walks themselves. So another service that we offer is our training, but a lot of that was one-on-one. And so how we were able to make some changes to continue to service new clients and also our existing clients was one of the challenges that we had to overcome. And so one of the things when we started to look at is we started to see how can we, as our own community with our business and the community we've built with our clientele, how can we also help? And so the Dallas Animal Services, which is our local shelter, has done a really good job on allowing people to come and foster some dogs. And so I just read a report yesterday that they have more dogs in foster care right now than they do in the shelter, which is amazing. And the city of Dallas has one of the largest animal intakes per day. They take in, I believe, over 100 to 150 dogs per day. And so there's also a local nonprofit called Friends of DAS, which they raise money for the shelter to provide food, blankets, and whatnot. And so we were trying to think, well, how can we partner with them? Because there's a lot of red tape when it comes to working with the city. And us as offering a service of dog training, we can't say or just go into the shelter like, oh, we would like to help and do these things. So they actually started a program called the Rescued Run Club. And basically what that is for the month of April, they're going to be allowing people from anywhere to join on this run where for 30 days, you have to either walk or run your dog at least 30 miles. And throughout the month, you track it every single day, how many miles you walked. And so I noticed that they were always sharing people that were preparing to do this program. And so I thought, well, I want to do this too, because not only will it provide something for my clients to do while they're at home, but also I noticed that they're resharing a lot of what they do. And so I just decided to sign up for this program, and it costs $25. And I noticed that when I started to share this, they were also resharing a lot of my stories on Instagram. And I know that I'm always trying to think, like, how can I be different in the sense of people are going to they're sharing, people walking their 1 or 2 dogs. Well, I have 8 dogs with me. And so I'm trying to get people to go down that rabbit trail and say, well, who's this person that's walking all these dogs and what do they do? So I'm trying to get people to go down that rabbit trail to get that engagement that we're looking after. And then we're also really engaging the clientele that we have to take part in a lot of these programs as well. And so we've noticed that we put out a call to action within our clients, and we noticed that a lot of people are signing up to do these things. And so when we see people signing up to do these things, I'm like, well, how can we reach the clientele that we already have? So we started to think of ways how we can, because we are a one-on-one business where we work with our clientele. And so as we started to get them on board to do these things, we wanted to also see how we can use a lot of platforms that are available. And a lot of people have already talked about that, like using Zoom. We started to use Skype and Google Hangouts, and we just recently moved over to Zoom, just because it seems a lot easier for people to use, and we can put a lot of people on there. when we're doing our virtual consultations. And so, you know, now instead of doing these one-on-one in-home sessions, we're able to, I can sit in my office and I can guide people and I can see what they're doing. And I can also just, you know, guide them through with some of the issues that they're having or things that they want to learn. You know, and we've even, or we're currently trying to work on a group class, a virtual group class, so that a lot of the clients can work in the comfort of their own home as we work in our home. And so, you know, we can have, you know, a large amount of people. We'll cap it at probably like 10 people or so. And we're just trying to find ways how we can still interact with our clients and new clients. And, you know, that's kind of one of the ways that we've gone. And then, can we go to the next slide? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you go back to the previous slide? I'm sorry. It was how we're adapting to change. Yeah. And then the really good thing that we really love is how I don't like driving around. In Dallas, the traffic is so bad here that I was always spending so much time just driving around. And so using Zoom and doing these one-on-one, I was able to pack in more sessions per day than I would have driving around, and I could just be here in the comfort of my own home. And you know, that was just one of the really good ways that we were able to continuously get new clients and work with them, and we've seen some really good returns on that. Also, one of the things that we did, you know, going back to partner up with the local shelter, we actually did take in one of those dogs. It was a troubled dog, and people have been watching his progress online. And so, you know, just kind of saying here, this is us giving back to the community. It's, you know, we're really big on community, whether it's within our clientele that we have now, or, you know, even within the city. And so basically we've fostered a dog. His name's Whiskey. And again, he's a troubled dog that has had a bite history. And so people are able to see how we've been working with him. And so there's a lot of people who can relate to that and say, I have that dog that has bitten other people and whatnot. And so people get to see how we're able to help this guy out. And then also we started to offer, you know, some of our clients that had stuff scheduled, we basically did refund them their money. Now, we refunded them the money, but a lot of them have just turned back around and said, hey, we want to do the virtual sessions with you. A lot of people really want to help out in this time right now. They really, they're willing to help in any ways they can, because they have a lot of time to work with their dogs. And so many people are just sitting at home right now. And so we always use the analogy of our dogs are at home all day long, and now we're home all day long. And so a lot of people are getting stir crazy. And how do you think your dog feels being home alone all day long? We're at work. And so now we're using that analogy that says, hey, let's go out and let's go on a walk. You know, take your dog for a walk. And so what slide do you want to see? Can we go to the next slide, please? So how we're adapting to change. Okay, so actually, I'm sorry. Can you go to the one that's taken one day at a time? Yeah, so this is one of the things that, and those of you who don't know my story, back in 2000, before I started this business, I had lost everything. I went through divorce, I went through unemployment. And so I had zero money. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And I just somehow figured out a way how to make it work. And so I started this business. And I mean, in the beginning, I did panic because I didn't know what I was gonna do. And I kind of feel, in a way, we've kind of gone back to that. And this whole thing, yeah, it's been a hard adjustment for many of us. But I know at the end of the day, we're gonna make it through this. And I know, take it from someone who's lost everything before, I know what it feels like not to have anything. So I know that moving forward, like, you just got to keep your head above water right now and get creative and go ahead and continue to try and figure out how how to make this work, and really engage the clientele that you have now. Another thing that we've been doing is we created a challenge. You've probably been seeing a lot of challenges on social media where they see a pup, post a pup kind of thing. And so one of the ways that we have been engaging with our clientele is we created a challenge called See a Place, Stay in Place Challenge. And the place is, it's an area where the dog, where it's on a bed, they go and lay down and hang out. And it's one of the things that we teach a lot. And so we are creating this challenge that we're engaging our clientele to go and continue to work with that command, that place command, go to your bed and rest. And we're engaging our clientele to say, hey, continue to do this, and let's create a challenge. And the challenge is going to be that you see a place and you send your dog a place and you post a video and you share it with us. And also we created a bingo within our clientele that says, you know, take a picture of your dog, you know, out on a walk. If you see, get a head tilt, get a picture of your dog in place. And so we're continuously trying to get our clientele active in doing things with their dogs, and you know, trying to build that that relationship with them and their dogs. And because that's one of the things that we really thrive on, is our relationship with each other, but also our relationship with our dogs. Next slide, please.
I think we got a little bit out of order.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my fault.
This is probably the one, no worries at all. This is probably the one you were trying to get to.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So right now, there's a lot of times where people feel that they're panicking. And so we have really used our platforms to show how much we're supporting them. We have our own like Facebook group, and every day I go on there and I engage with the clients that we have, and I'm like, hey, look guys, this is something that you can do. Learn something new, learn a new craft. One of the things that I'm learning is I'm learning videography, just because I know in the future that's going to be very beneficial for you know, our group classes that we want to do. But we basically want to be there as a support for everyone. So all of our clientele are really getting engaged within our personal Facebook group, our private Facebook group that we have. And basically they are encouraging each other, and they're saying, hey, like, you need something, then, you know, it doesn't have to be dog related either. We have people going in there and say, hey, do you need groceries? Because we do have some clients that are elderly, and now they're delivering you know, groceries to these elderly people. And so we basically want to be a place of not only a dog business, but we want a place to support in any way we can, to give back to the community. And you know, and I've just seen this big, like, huge call to action where people have just been supporting each other, and it's just amazing to see.
I think that was all of your content, but we definitely appreciate you explaining that and kind of talking through the ways that your business is changing. So we do want to open it up to questions for you. And we do have a couple. There's someone asking, they're trying to find a dog to foster, and they're in California, but having a hard time. Do you know of any particular spots where you can find all of them? It's in Alicio Viejo, California. It looks like. I'm not sure if you know anywhere in particular there, but there was a question about that.
Do you know where exactly it's at? That in southern central?
I don't know. I can have them, if you want to respond to that question, whoever asked it, we can ask that. There was also a few questions about your social media. So have you noticed that you're getting more engagement, and how often are you posting during this time versus before?
Yeah, there's a huge engagement. Oh, one thing that I actually forgot to mention, there was a lifestyle account that they promote a lot of bars and restaurants here in Dallas, and the founders are actually clients of ours. And so since they're not able to really promote a lot of the bars and restaurants like they were previously, they actually reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to advertise your virtual consultations on our platform? And I'm like, of course. And so they have a huge following here in Dallas. And we did see a huge return on that. And they need money too, so they've also have discounted a lot of their services. So for very little amount of money, they were able to advertise our virtual consultations with a little video and a picture, and we did see a huge return on that, which was really awesome because we didn't know what we were going to do. So when they had reached out to us, I was like, wow, well, that's a great idea. And so that really, really was a really awesome thing for us that came to us. Oh, and then the second part of the question, we're posting every other day, and again, a lot of the stuff that we're posting is mainly how to fulfill your dog in these times, because again, everyone's at home. We're not really advertising so much about what our services are in the sense of because it's changed. We are throwing that in there, but it's more about this is the thing that you can do now that you have all the time in the world, what you can do during these times to fulfill your dog.
That's awesome. I definitely know a lot of people will find use in that. A couple of people have just said that your story was inspiring. These are a lot of great tips for people in any business. So we definitely appreciate that. Someone did mention that this place is in Orange County, and they shared someone else shared a resource called the wishforanimals.org.
Awesome.
If you know of any other ones in Orange County, that'd be appreciated, I think. But otherwise, I think they got the answer they needed.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Art. We are going to go to the next person just for time, but we definitely appreciate your feedback and all of the great examples on how to help our pups and our business during these times.
Thank you.
Perfect. So next we're going to go to Amber of the Amber Studio, and she's going to talk about photography and events. You can take it away, Amber. Amber, I think you might be on mute.
Hi, so sorry.
No worries at all.
I'm a little worried, a little flustered. Hi, everyone. I'm Amber Knowles. Thank you, Bluehost, for having me. I am a wedding photographer in Dallas, Texas, and my wedding photography business is called the Amber Studio. I work with a lot of diverse couples here in Texas, and I enjoy capturing and telling their stories, and that's sort of become like my mission. So let's see, the obstacle here. Events were literally the first thing I think to be canceled and to go with everything that's happened. At the beginning of the month, I saw my first cancellation, and it was a corporate event. So I do corporate events and weddings. A lot of my corporate events usually schedule pretty last minute or really close to their date. So this particular client, they had reached out, confirmed that they were going to hire me, and within like an hour, they said, they emailed back and said, oh, they were going to cancel the event instead because they were getting a lot of concern over their attendees traveling in. So I didn't even get a contract to them yet. So yeah, I was pretty devastated. But I still wasn't quite sure if it was going to affect my weddings yet or what was going to happen. But literally within a few days, I started to see my weddings for March, April, and May start to postpone their dates. So yeah, let's go to the next slide. So what have I been doing during this time? In the beginning, I was very shocked, I have to be honest. I think like all of us, I was kind of shocked. I wasn't sure what was happening. Everything started happening so fast. And there was a day where I wasn't sure, what I was going to do next, but I was thankful for my community of entrepreneur friends and photographer friends and my event industry friends who kept me on my toes and my spirits high. And so I think a couple people mentioned earlier that really this is the time to lean on your community. They're going to be so important for how we move forward during all of this. then I kind of began to think about the things that I've always wanted to do, but never had the time to do. One of those things was I have an idea for a movie script, and I was thinking, let me research how I can figure out how to begin this movie script. I have an idea, but I haven't put it down into writing yet, and this is kind of the time for me to figure that out. And then the other thing that I've been working on, which I actually just completed, was I finally got my second website completed on Bluehost. It's another WordPress site. And this website is for my other side of my photography business. While I have a wedding website, theamberstudio.com, I created another website, amberknowles.com, to showcase my portrait and headshot work, and also some still life and product work that I do. So yeah, I use this website. I wanted to create this website because I thought it was important that during this time we kind of look at the bigger picture of everything that we can do as creative business owners and make shifts where we need to. If events and weddings aren't going to be happening for the next few months, what else can I do that will start to bring in income for me? I can shoot and capture still life and products in my home space. And when our shelter at home and social distancing orders lift, I can do headshots and portraits for and smaller one-on-one groups of people. And then for my product photography portfolio, I pulled some photos that I've captured at weddings and events and of different products to showcase that I can also do that style of photography as well. And finally, I'm learning how to code. It's always been a dream of mine for a little bit. I have a huge passion for websites, and I've kind of always wanted to learn how to code. So I found some free resources online, and I've been digging into those. Next slide, please. So during this time, I've been really inspired by the innovation and the ingenuity of creatives and small business owners who have pivoted really quickly, like April with Happy, and figuring out what they can do now and what will set them up for future success. We're all entrepreneurs, and I always like to say that entrepreneurs are a special breed of people. Whether you are making, $5,000 in revenue a year or $500,000 in revenue a year, you know how to make something out of nothing. And so this is that time that's going to challenge you to kind of pivot and rethink how you're doing things. I'm just inspired seeing people all around me create, and they saw folks in businesses who saw things fall apart within a matter of days are still creating and still building. And a few of those are DJ D Nice's homeschool Instagram live sets, which I found to be a lot of fun, bringing people together digitally and entertaining people on social media. And also my catering friends who have catering businesses, they're switching from catering events to catering small family dinners to be picked up and to go while events are on hiatus. And someone else mentioned restaurants who are creating to-go meals. And another one of my catering friends who created, she did like an IG live meal prep, which I thought was a lot of fun, where she put out the ingredient list before, so everyone grocery shopped for the ingredients, and then they all meal prep together on her Instagram live, which I thought was a lot of fun. Okay, so what am I working on now? I am readjusting how I think about selling my photography. One of the ways that I mentioned earlier was with my headshot and product photography website. And then the other way is that I'm looking into stock photography and how I can go about doing that. This is more of a long-term game that I see having more of a long-term benefit to start creating an avenue for some residual income in the future, which I think, things are continuously going to be changing. So in the future, if this happens again, I'll hopefully have some of all of this set up. I am reaching out to my previous clients who were recently married or recently had portraits taken with me, and offering them the option to purchase albums and prints and services that I can offer from my home office. So while we're practicing social distance, I can also create this opportunity to sell them these different things. And then I'm also working on building awareness for my brand. While I know that a lot of folks aren't quite ready to spend large amounts of money right now, I'm working on ways that they can get to know me, get to know my brand, so that when they are ready to buy again, hopefully I will be top of mind. So part of that is putting together an email newsletter campaign to help couples who are planning their wedding. And this really isn't a direct sale kind of a thing. It's more that I'm offering these emails with information to so that they can get to know me, get to know my brand, and also helping them along with the things that they're working on. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think it's really important that we keep our heads in the game, be fluid. I truly believe that change is inevitable. And right now we're seeing a big cultural shift happening right now. It's happening really quickly, but going forward, I think it's going to be important that we don't remain stagnant or remain the same, and that you use this time to change as things are changing around you.
Awesome. I think that was like super helpful to hear that. I think everybody appreciates your honesty and your way of explaining, leaning onto your communities and things like that, and things that you've been wanting to do. I think there's a really good question that we have about, in retrospect, is there anything that you would have done to prepare ahead of time had you thought about it or known it at the time?
I think in retrospect, some of the things that I would have done to prepare in advance would have been the things that I'm doing now. So learning about getting my images on stock sites to sell them in advance would have prepared me to have that income already coming in versus being at the very beginning of that process. And then also having my website set up, and my second website set up, the one that I have the product photography on, and just having that as another part of my business and part of my brand, so that people know that they can still reach out to me. My thought right now is that I'll maybe working with businesses who can ship things in to me, and then I can set it up and shoot them in my home workshop space. And I think, so yeah, the things that I would have done beforehand are the things that I'm currently doing now, but I don't think it's too late to do anything.
I agree with that. I think that's a great way to end that, actually. I think the point is that you started doing something and that it's working and you're figuring that out. I think we did get a question as well about how are you handling people that had to cancel, that are going to be rescheduled, that have maybe already paid for services.
Right. So most of my weddings, they pay the deposit in advance, and then their final payment is usually due when they get closer to their date. So with my wedding clients who have rescheduled, I'm working with each couple. Each situation is very different as they are working on picking new dates with their other vendors, because they have to make sure that everyone is available, which can be pretty big of a hassle for them on that end. So once they choose a date, I have waived their change fees, and the deposit that they paid initially will move over to their new date. The hard part about this for me has been that the money that I have kind of accounted for to come in, say for the month of March from their final payments, or the month of April for their final payments, I'm no longer receiving because those events were moved out. A couple of my clients have been really generous and have when I've explained to them the situation, I've just been really honest, and they have paid maybe half of their balance due, and then the final 1/3 of that balance will be due closer to their new wedding date.
That's really nice of them, and I think that's really great of you for offering that as an option as well. I know we're we're over time a little bit already. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to add, or do you feel like you got everything in?
I think I got everything in. I think,
okay.
yeah, just be open to change.
Thank you so much for joining, Amber. We appreciate your perspective and all the things that you're doing to help further your business. Okay, and last but not least, let's talk a little bit about storefront locations. So we're going to have another guest, and he is Aaron M. Clay, and he's going to take over now. Go ahead, Aaron.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, my name is Aaron M. Clay, at Aaron M. Clay on Twitter, if you want to catch up after this. So I am a marketing professional and board member for lots of theater organizations. And I've been marketing for Amy's Ice Cream since 2010. I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary. And everything I've done has led up to the last 2 weeks, and where everything changed hour by hour. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the first thing that we started doing in 2019 is we noticed a trend among customers. So Amy's Ice Creams is known for pretty long lines. The reason that is because we will crush in or mix in to your ice cream, cookies and candies and all sorts of stuff like that. So we started to see customers didn't want to wait in line. They wanted other options for us to deliver ice cream right away in a quick manner. And we call these convenience-driven strategies, or you can see here, convenience-focused practices. And so what we did is we looked at certain things like grab-and-go freezers, ice cream shipping, and then order ahead. And because we found vendors and partners who could help us do that, we were able to turn on a dime. So in Austin, on March 17th, the mayor declared that all dine-in service must end and you can do only delivery and to go. So we knew we needed to do something, and we spun up a delivery service in 3 days. Now, thankfully, we had the ability to do that because we had a catering department who was used to driving around ice cream orders, and now we just scaled back the size of the orders. And we used our partner Flipdish, who created an iPhone and Android app for us, and on our Bluehost site at amysicecreams.com, a whole ordering option. And so we were absolutely able to turn around delivery like that. And we've been expanding delivery and curbside ever since. Now, the cool thing is our supply chain was also worried about their own businesses. So for things like Expedia, marketing materials, signage, products, all sorts of stuff like this, vendors from food all over the place, they all wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. So instead of waiting 2, 3, 4 days to turn around products and projects, most of our vendors were turning it around in 24 hours. They needed to be a partner with us as fast as possible. Now, of course, we also had lots of other stuff. We wanted to expand the Amy's experience, and I think this is really important for everyone who has a restaurant, a small business, and any storefront that happens. You've got an Amy's experience. For us, you stand in line, you watch these scoops, as our word for employees. They toss your ice cream and they throw it all over the place, and they make all sorts of connections, and it's really fun. How do we do that online? How do we do that with delivery? And so what we're doing right now is we're building all of that in. As an example, at Amy's, we always say we want you to have a human moment. How do you have a human moment when you're doing a contactless delivery? Well, we started adding delivery notes inside of our bags that had a very personal message signed by the person who was delivering it and who made your ice cream. So you understood that this isn't just some faceless corporation. These are real people who are trying to get real hours and tips so they can provide for their families and their own existence. Let's go to the next slide really quickly. So we were able to really do this stuff, and it's really thanks to our staff who did it. And we wanted to make sure that we really took care of the business and our staff. It was really important for us. So every week we watch our sales and bank balance very closely. This means that we're an open book management company, which means we share all the major financial statements with every single employee. And we also teach them to read those financial statements and make decisions based off of that. We always know our cash position because right now it is one of those things that we have to watch every day. We also monitor lots of feedback, both internally and externally, to make what we call micro changes. And you've heard all of this before. And I want you to imagine when you're doing your business, when you're doing these new pivots, think about driving a car. You've got your hands on the steering wheel. Do you not move your hands when you're driving down the road? No, you make tiny little micro adjustments to make sure that you stay in your lane and that you head to your destination. And so we're making those same micro changes to every little piece of this new world that we're in, because we don't know what's going on. So we have to put a stake in the ground, and we have to say what's going to set us apart from every other ice cream joint, dessert joint, or delivery service. So another thing we did in our business that was really important, we stopped or slowed all unnecessary spending, and we went through every single thing that we possibly spend money on over the next 6 months, and we cut back on everything we could. And then we take that money, either funnel it into payroll or we funnel it into marketing so that we can continue to keep the doors open. Something that I think is great for anybody, no matter how big your how many employees you have, and that's creating a resource for them to understand what's going on and what you're doing to protect them and the business. So we created a helper site, that's what we call it, and it's just a Google site, and we update it almost every day, sometimes by the hour, and it's a place for employees to get all the resources they need to stay safe and healthy and to really understand what the business is doing and to stay on top of all the changes. So as you can imagine, when we were starting all the social distancing and self-isolation, we didn't know what was going to happen. And in Austin, we were usually a day or two behind Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. So although we saw what we thought was coming, we still had to make plans based off of what is going on in the market right now. And it is changing like crazy. Let's go to the next slide. So I just wanted to reiterate this. So anybody who's in a food service environment, this is what we are doing to keep our employees safe. And we're going even further than that now. So the first is we do curbside pickup, but instead of just going straight to the car, we're actually putting it on a table where you can stage it, a staging table, and that way we can keep that 6-foot distance at all times, and we're not actually getting close to those vehicles. We've also reduced our lobby space to 2 to 3 people, and in the next coming days, we're going to announce that we're closing all lobbies and going to curbside delivery only. And right now we have a door person who will stop people from coming in and make sure everyone stays 6 feet apart at all times. We stopped offering samples, we no longer crush in, and all of our normal high standard cleaning routines, everything that we do normally, it's not just done once an hour. Now it is done once every 10, 15 minutes. And the idea is that we want to make sure our employees are as safe as possible. Anyone who has more than 1 employee, 2, 3, 300, whatever it happens to be, they're just like you right now. They're scared. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what the future holds. They need someone with a strong rudder to help them move forward. And so every day that might change, but we always try to be that place, that employer that sees what is coming day by day and make decisions based off of that so that we can best help our employees and then best help our customers and keeping everyone safe. You know, there's not going to be going back to normal, we believe. There's going to be a new normal we have, and we won't get there for quite a while, and we'll look back and we'll say, that's when things changed. But right now, it's all about, you know, not just treading water, but also how can we swim forward. All right, let's go to the next slide. So I've got a couple of suggestions for you guys that I think is really important. You know, as you start to pivot, everyone's doing great pivots from what we've heard today, and I love what everyone's doing. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The first thing is go back to marketing 101, right? What problem are you solving for the customer? And now think in this new context, which you've heard earlier today. Knowing this new context, how can I serve that customer and solve their problems. Do this with a partner. And just like you see here, your vendors and supply chain, we're all in a similar situation. So what I want you to do is think about collaboration. What you'll notice in the restaurant industry for delivery and curbside is a lot of dessert vendors, dessert shops are teaming up with other businesses who have regular meal service or to-go meals. So that way a customer goes to one spot and they can get their barbecue and then get a couple of pints of ice cream. And so we wanted to make sure that we do that all across our products as well, our services. And so we are going to be launching a hamburger service where you can buy hamburger to-go meals and we will deliver those straight to your door. And it gives you everything. Plus we'll have another option for raw meats and bread and all sorts of things like that. Not only that, but we're also going to be selling toilet paper and paper towels on our delivery service as well. And you might say that has nothing to do with ice cream, but it has everything to do with our community. And that's who we're trying to serve. In this new context, no one has toilet paper for some odd reason. And we're going to provide that for them because we have a supply chain that has it already in our hands. We just need to get it out to the customers. So for my business owners, for my leaders in organizations, you know, you're gonna have people who are underneath you who need your help. What I want you to do is take time for yourself. I'm an Austin hippie, so I'm gonna say, you know, meditate. If you need to go and do a run, whatever it takes, outside on the porch with a beer, whatever it is, take time to ground yourself. And take a break from the news, for the love of God. If there's anything that I've learned is that I am watching too much news, and now I'm starting to take myself away so I can think creatively. Something that's not listed here that I also want to say is details, details, details. When you start to pivot, think of the details. Think of all the small things you've heard today. Like April, I think she had so many great things with her app and her service because she thought about the details. Details, details, details. And I want you to be conservative with your cash. I know it's how recessions happen, how depressions happen. We all understand, but you need to take care of yourself and your business before you can take care of others. The one last thing I want to mention here too is always focus on hope and humor. That's what we're trying to focus on. There's gonna be a light at the end of the tunnel and we could laugh all the way there. All right, I'm ready for question.
Erin, that was an amazing, amazing ending. Thank you so much. So we do have a few questions that I thought were pretty good. So someone wants to know, how did you decide on which costs to cut back on? Like, how did you figure that out and make those movements or changes?
Yeah, so I have two answers to that. And the first one is value-based, meaning when I say values, I mean our guiding principles. Like, is this going to help our mission statement to make people's day? As an example, I subscribe to a stock photo service. It does not help me make people's day. I can go off the content that I currently have and I won't use stock photography. So I canceled that service. The other is ROI. So if I was going to, let's say this was this amount of money I was going to invest in the stock market. Am I going to get the most out of that money? So looking at that service, if I was to take that, you know, 40, 500, whatever dollar amount and say, if I was to invest this money in my business, what would make the greatest impact?
I think that's a great way to figure that out. Thank you so much for sharing that. Someone else wants to know, how will you keep the delivery after all of this is quote unquote over?
It changes day by day. I want to, the company wants to, but the thing is, the reason we were able to spin this up so fast and be able to cover so much of Austin and Houston is because we have a catering service. It's $1 million department, and every single booking they had has been canceled up until October. And so we have the people to do it. So now it just needs to show off that we can make money with it, or at least sustain payroll and expenses with it. I would say if we break even when it comes down to it with delivery, we'll keep it because it's a service people are loving. And if you follow our Instagram, people are asking that in stories. I hope they continue to do delivery. It's a nice way providing a service to our customers that they hadn't thought they needed. And the thing is, when you use our app, more of the money is staying in Austin than if you use DoorDash or Uber Eats. We pay 30% of total sales out to those third-party services. And so by keeping the app in-house, we're saving 27%. So it's really something that is beneficial for us. But I will say this, the other thing that we're having to deal with is the perception of we are a company that throws ice cream, does lots of stuff in line, and you go to the store to experience Amy's. Now we're turning it into Amy's comes to you. So we as a company have to have the mindset of abundance and say we can do both of these things, and we can make the kind of impact that we do in the stores with someone's delivery.
I think you guys actually do a really good job of that. I'm also locally in Austin. As Aaron knows, of course, we've met many times. But I have friends who, I'm a little bit further out, but I have friends who have ordered delivery and have gotten that, and it's still kind of been that same warm feeling that you get in your locations. So I think you're doing a great job there. I'm curious as to what's happening with your, I know you talked a lot about your workforce and how you're keeping them safe and how you're trying to keep everyone on payroll and things like that. What have you noticed in terms of like shift changes? Like, I know you have less people in each location at a time right now. What kind of impacts are those having with your employees?
Yeah, so early on, about March 17th-ish, when we shut down dine-in service, most of the parents of 18 and younger employees were pulled out of the stores by their request. And we put a policy in place that if you don't want to come to work during this entire thing, you do not have to, no repercussions whatsoever. And we've also pledged to help with financial assistance for things like rent and groceries and other medical expenses for our employees because of the reduced hours. The only reason, or the only way we were able to do that is because we're so conservative with our cash. Now, after that, then we had less employees to deal with it, for lack of a better term. And we started social distancing. So usually there's only one person on in the morning and two people on 6 feet apart at all times, cleaning at all times in our stores. And the same thing for our production department. We have instituted strict social distancing guidelines and moved equipment around so that nobody is going to be endangered. We are taking every precaution possible. And then we have seen a lot of scoops who wanted to join the delivery service because they get to keep that social distancing, they're able to get tips, and they're able to stay and work in Austin, work around their store and their neighborhoods. And it's been really helpful. So if I only have a shift for one person during the day, I can have 2 or 3 more shifts just for delivery drivers. So we're guaranteeing hours, we're guaranteeing wages, we're guaranteeing tips. And so we're trying to work on that so that we're not just taking care of our bottom line, we're helping facilitate them to take responsibility and to help their own bottom line.
I'm really inspired. I actually am really impressed by how well your team has thought this through and how many different ways you're actually helping your employees, the community, and Amy's is really known for extreme positivity for anyone who's never heard of them. But I really appreciate you joining today. I know we're well over time at this point, but do you have any follow-up last minute thoughts that you want to say or?
Yeah, just the last thing, you know, sometimes we're far away from our loved ones and they're across the country. So if you're interested, everyone, there is a coupon code I'll send to Michelle. Amy's at home, all one word, gets you $20 off ice cream shipping. So you can ship a little happiness to those who may be alone right now or who need a little cheering up. Amy's at home, all one word, at checkout.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with our webinar attendees as well. So for everyone who joined us today, we will send out a webinar recording for you, as well as the presentation so that you can look over it later. You're welcome to let us know if you have any questions. We'll stay on for just a minute longer, but just know that we will send this to you today within the next 2 days, as well as an invite to our next webinar that we have as well. Thank you so much for joining and all of our panelists for sharing their expertise today. And we wish you continued success in your business and in your life. Thank you so much.